Your access to your emotions can be seen as aggressive, over-emotional, or too much. And you can then begin to blame yourself in this same act as well. We take on the social court system around us and begin to judge, jury, and executioner our own way of being, which leaves you versus your emotions. I wrote this some time ago, and I wanted to wrap up this series about being a highly sensitive person with that quote. And you can go back and listen to it. And this will be an explanation of all of that and 3 things you can take away from it. I don't really have a plan for this video at all, to be quite honest with you. But I wanted to finish on this note because I came across this note in my phone and I thought it was extremely important to relay it to you. I'll say it again. Your access to your emotions can be seen as aggressive, over-emotional, or too much. And you can then begin to blame yourself in this act as well. We take on the social court system around us and begin to be judge, jury, and executioner of our own way of being, which leaves you versus your emotions. There is a particularly pernicious element to being able to think about what we think about, being able to become frustrated with our own frustrations, to become angry with our own anger. And it is this compounded effect where we have judgment for ourselves because we feel a certain way. We judge the emotion, we judge the feeling, or we judge the way that we voiced ourselves or expressed ourselves. I will tell you this. When I was young, one of my best friends had left school. He moved to a different suburb or something like that. And so he left, I think it's 7th grade or something like that. And in 9th grade, I saw him and we went for a walk and we hung out and everything was all good. It was so cool. It was like, oh, we were talking about video games again and whatnot. And this was either over the phone or in person. I can't remember, maybe both. And I told him, I said, yeah, man, I've missed you. And you could have swore a wine glass broke or like a pizza pan hit the ground like that. Boom, wah, 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 when it like winds down. And he was just like, and there was this moment of, oh, I think I said the wrong thing. Because it came off as too much. It came off as over emotional, or it just came off as emotional. And he and I had never said to each other, yeah, you're my friend, man. We're friends. The friend group I had growing up, you never stated it. You just were, right? And so that's who we are. We don't talk about friendship club. Because to say that would have been to express weakness in our eyes as kids back then. And I felt a certain way about it, man. I hadn't seen the homie in like 1 or 2 years. It felt awful. And, we talked on the phone every now and then and we, go over video games and this is that and the third, what have you been experiencing? How's your new school? But when I said that outwardly. I felt that certain way and then I expressed it. And then he looked at me as if I had, just told him I was an alien from outer space and had been just perchance happening to inhabit Earth. He looked at me with this look of like, it wasn't dread, but it was just like, please make this not weird. And so I think I was like, oh, because it's been a long time, man. Yeah, anyways, well, man, it's so good to see you. So what's going on, man? You try to cover it up and whatnot. And that was a moment where it wasn't right or wrong. It wasn't bad or good. It was what it was. And what I learned from that moment is, well, you can't expect everybody to have the same level of emotion that you do. You have no control over that. 2, have an expectation when you say something. Maybe you can just express something without expectation. We talked about this in the last video, expressing compassion or being able to say, I love you without any expectation and just being to stand, firmly and just say, this is how I feel confidently. And I wish you well. And then the third thing I learned from it was that I definitely, not only do I have these feelings, but I have the proclivity to express them in a certain way. How can I express myself and feel okay with it? You know, like, how can I express myself and not think that I need anything in return? And essentially, what is the most healthy way about navigating my emotions? And that's really that's what I wanted for myself. I didn't want to have that weird moment with my friend, even though I was like, well, looking back on it now, I'm happy that it happened. I'm so grateful that it happened. There's so much value in that. And for me, it's such a stepping stone and learning stone to understanding myself as a highly sensitive person, or understanding myself in vulnerability. And it can definitely come off as over emotional to somebody that perceives it as that, but to you, it's a baseline. It's just a straight baseline. And that's your normal. For them, that's highly. So when we talked about this in the earlier video, what is the baseline? You know, like, where's yours at? And then reading the room, what else is that around you as well? Like, what is that? And how are you in conjunction with other people that may not be highly sensitive people, that may not be okay with vulnerability, which is okay, but it's like, where's your barometer at with it? And in being seen or measured and weighed as over emotional, too much, or aggressive, as we have in this quote here, I then began to judge myself. And you might have done the same thing too. You might have expressed yourself, you might have said something, and in the saying or expression of that thing, you then feel, oh, so stupid. Why did I say that? Oh, that was so dumb. You then start to pile on yourself. And what's happening is you're beginning to build a court system around your own identity in the way that you express yourself and who you are and your behaviors and whatever else may be attributed to you or what you think is you. And so you then start to set up this, dare I say, carceral system for yourself. You begin to lock away certain things that you don't want to say. You begin to hide or repress things that you feel. And you wouldn't even, that's to the point that you would repress it from saying out loud, but repress it from even feeling it yourself. And we talked about the cost of that in this past video. The cost of repressing emotions can be physical. Can spike your cortisol levels and you end up getting sick. I mean, there's so many things that can happen as a result of it, but there's a cost. There is a deep cost to it, a definitive cost. And when we are going into, like, speaking on the idea of your own carceral court system and you know, emotional punitive system, how long has that been going on for? What's been the cost? Who's the judge? Who's the jury? How does the execution, you know, proceed? Like, what happens with that? What is cut from you, or what is edited from you in that process? And I think it's extremely important to take inventory of that, because for me, the cost for me was not singing. Sounds strange, but early on as a kid, I knew that I could sing, or I, you know, could emulate, you know, Screaming Jay Hawkins and James Brown and all that stuff, and Robert Plant and all that cool stuff. But I felt extremely dumb, like, doing it. Like, I was like, I have no business. It's no, you know, young black kid has a business singing like Robert Plant. Come on now. And in the judgment of that, I ended up really editing my creative self and my identity and who I am and what I want for myself, and, you know, the heights that I wanted to reach and the visions that I could have and the dreams that I wanted. I ended up settling for a devil I know for the God I don't. Does it make sense? So what comfort are we settling for in creating this court system around our emotions? What devil are we settling for? The comfort that we're settling for, the familiarity that we're settling for in this scenario, for the amazing things that we don't know, that are like just on the other side of a little bit of consistency, just on the other side of a little bit of vulnerability, just on the other side of a little bit of acceptance for yourself. What's on the other side of that? There's a whole world out there. And when somebody came to me in high school and said, can you sing this thing? I said, what is it for? What's the context? And they said, oh, it's for a talent show. I said, yeah, sure, totally. Because singing in a talent show, you know, I could justify it in my head. You know, like, it wasn't like, oh, you're just gonna be doing it for the sake of doing it. And so When I began doing that and then being able to put words together, going to poetry classes and then honing the craft of writing and performance art, then it all started to click for me that I don't necessarily need permission. You don't need permission to be this authentic self of yours with all these big feelings and these emotions and these thoughts and these visions. You don't need permission to have all those things. It's just there for you anyways. The question is, how do you want to go about it? How do you want to build this? I think of the video game SimCity when I first started putting this all together. It was like SimCity with an unlimited budget. So I was just like, school, downtown, airport, all these things. I got to put them all together as opposed to, I don't know if I can do that. No, that might upset somebody. No, it's your world. It really is your world, and it's your means of expression. And so when we start to undo the carceral system or the court system that we've built up and created around our emotions, we're then able to look at our emotions, our big feelings for what they are, and navigate them. And then find routes and lanes for them, not spaces for them, but places for them to flourish. Like there doesn't need to be a repression for everything that you want to say. You don't have to say everything as well. But the thing is that there is a way to go about all the feelings that you have. And the question is, what have the I'm trying to think of the word retroactive, but what have the ways of dealing with your emotions been that has created resentment? So when you go about unhealthy coping mechanisms of dealing with your own emotions, like by building a carceral system around them, undo that. Now what is a healthy lane for it? What is it means of catharsis with these emotions? With really coming to terms with who you are, with really undoing all the limitations and all the judgment and all the horrible things that you've said about yourself in having these feelings and emotions. What happens when you undo all of that? We talk about there's being some really special things on the other side of being vulnerable. Really amazing things on the other side of being honest with ourselves. What is on the other side of that? For me, it was singing as loud as I wanted to, as crazy as I wanted to. And that really developed into the artist that I am today. And not a lot of it, I don't sing all the time. I mean, I'm writing a lot of it, but it's what does that look like? What would that character say? In this film script, what's going to happen next? Who cares about the budget? Go for it. Just write it down. See what happens. And so when we stop blaming ourselves and we start getting into a place of neutrality, or impersonalness, which is not impossible, but it's very tough. But just coming to a stance of impersonalness with our emotions, we're then able to undo the judge, jury, and executioner. And now we're no longer us against our own emotions. So you see how that works? Again, I'm gonna go down this quote again, because we just broke it down, and we'll give you the takeaways here really quick. Your access to your emotions can be seen as aggressive, over-emotional, or too much. The way that you feel will be merited, measured, and weighed when you externalize it. And when that happens, you can then begin to blame yourself in this act as well. However, when you remove the blame, when you remove the finger pointing, even at other people, how do your emotions and feelings just exist on their own when you're in meditation or you're sitting with them? Because when we blame, we take on the social court system around us and begin to be judge, jury, and executioner of our own way of being. However, when we unravel that court system, when we take it away, when we remove its foundation, and we simply are just with ourselves, no punitive system, no punishment for how we feel or express ourselves, well, for how we feel, but how we want to express ourselves. What does that then look like? Because if that's carceral system is still there, it leaves us with you versus your emotions. However, in removing the carceral system or the court system that we have for our own emotions, the judgment we have for ourselves, it's no longer us against our own emotions. It becomes just us. And we're sitting there with how we feel and what our emotions are. And when I look back on the little story that I told you, I am able to laugh at that situation that I had with my friend when I was younger, and there was this whole of like, oh my God, I told my friend I miss him. Oh no, it's weird. I'm able to laugh at that, and also I'm able to go back and speak to that former version of myself and really say, that was really bold of you. That was super brave. Like, you felt nervous before saying it, and then you just said, F it, and just kicked it and said, hey man, I miss you. Oh wow, it's strange now. Anybody else notice that feeling? Just me? It's great that I have that experience. I'm so grateful to be able to tell you that story. Like, that means a lot, not only to me, but I hope it means something to you, because I want you to be able to navigate those moments that you've had where you have blamed yourself or felt shame or felt guilt. And that's how we started out this whole series with being a highly sensitive person, that there comes a significant amount of shame and guilt. And that doesn't start, I do not believe that starts with us. I think it really happens with how the scenario and the conditions that we grow up in, for being punitive for somebody expressing themselves, or being judgmental, saying somebody's weak for expressing themselves. And I think we begin to internalize that system outside into ourselves, and we begin to be our not our biggest critic, but we become the harshest judge. The harshest like carceral system is within us at that point. And when we undo it, then there's a whole world out there. The question is how. So I'm gonna quickly, off the cuff, just give you 3 things that will help you undo the carceral system in your head. And this is quite the journey, because we're at the 16-minute mark of this video. But I think this is all important to speak this to you. The first step to undoing a court system and carceral system in your head, or just judgment about your own emotions, one is to not only look at the cost of judging yourself, but look at the reward of expressing yourself. The reward of the self-love you feel when you're able to say something and not feel any kind of critic or judgment for it. The joy that you feel when you are able to laugh with just purely no judgment. Some people laugh and they feel embarrassed about the way that they laugh. I think step 1 in undoing the carceral system is being able to look at the rewards and joy of being your authentic self. Because once you see that, why would you ever risk anything to undo that? It's so special and it's so valuable. And your authentic laughter and way of being is so valuable that there's really nothing in the world that I would sacrifice for that. And also because I wouldn't be able to give that joy to the people around me if I'm not able to give it to myself. So step 1, look at the absolute value in being authentic, and like what you get from being able to laugh as loud as you want and take the joy in being your own person and expressing yourself. Number 2, I would take a look at, how did this carceral system come about? That's a big deal. For me, I didn't have to look any further than the 2 people that were in the house before my sister was born. So, and it wasn't, it was interesting because I grew up in New Orleans and I came to Minnesota. And if you know anything culturally about these 2 cities, New Orleans is very outward in its expression of hospitality. Minnesota, really not so much. And even though my parents had a certain way of going about expressing themselves, getting to Minnesota before I hit any platform of arts and creativity, it was really like, I knew that I was like a highly emotional kid, but I just was like, oh man, I better keep it buttoned up. I'm not laughing at anything. I'm not crying for nobody. And so it then turned into a situation where that carceral system was being built up. But I mean, there was other things going on with the parents as well, where you're learning about, how to, problem solve, or, problem expand in some ways as well. But go back to the root. Where did this all start? Dog, where did this begin? Where did you first start judging who you were? When did you first start putting real harsh critique on the way that you expressed yourself? Like, oh man, that's so dumb. That's so silly. I can't believe oh, why'd I say it like that? You know, when did that first start and where did it come from? So I think that's extremely important to like look at that, because when you're able to source it out, go to the origin, well, now we can start looking at it for what it is, not undoing it, but just being like, oh, they didn't mean to say it to me like that. The external circumstances didn't have the intent of me creating a carceral system for my emotions. That's just what happened. I can go back to the origin, and now I can do a little bit of undoing because I understand the situation for what it was. I can look at it impersonally and say, oh, that happened because of that. It had no bearing on who I was being or the way that I was talking. It just was what it was. And then lastly, the way that you can undo a lot of this is, I look at the last part when it says it leaves you versus your emotions. I think the last way to really undo the carceral system within you is to understand that you being against you is obviously tough, but it's also something that can be flipped. What happens when you are your biggest fan? What happens when you are able to look in the mirror and say, and Brian Tracy says this all the time, I like you. Man, I really like you. What happens when that happens? I don't really have too much to explain after this, but I think it's really important for you to dive into the idea of looking into the mirror and just simply saying, I like you. What happens when you say that? How do you feel when you say that? What lights up in you when you say that? Where do you feel that when you say that? I think that is paramount, because when we tell ourselves that we like each other, that we like ourselves, then we start to really pick up on things about ourselves anyway that are just, oh, that is pretty dope. Yeah, I'm pretty amazing at that. I like that. Or I am pretty amazing. And so going back over it, undoing it, the idea of really being your biggest supporter comes down to going back to the origin of where a lot of these ideas and judgments came from, and then also looking at the value of your own joy. And I think when you take a look at, when you kind of go into action of all three of those steps, that can only be a healthy daily, weekly, if not monthly practice for you. And I really believe that you have not only the tools to sort all this out, but you already have it in you to go to the other side of it, to really get the value from being vulnerable, get the value from being honest with yourself, get the value from being authentic, because it's already there. It's already there. It's just a matter of facing it and doing the work. Whatever we face disappears. Whatever we focus on grows. We can go into that in another video as well. But the idea is that I know that you have the tools to do all this. And again, I don't know where this quote came from, but it just darn near made me cry when I read it, because I know that you have seen many people go through this, including yourself possibly. But I've seen so many people do this exact thing. And the wildest part about it all is there's no committed awareness to it. And I get it, because part of the way the devil we know, or the comfort in being a quarter of ourselves or our potential, is in the repeated story that this is what we deserve, or this is who we are. And it's not. It's really not. There's so much more to you. There are heights I know that you've seen in your dreams and visions, and then have totally written off as like, whatever. But dog, it's not whatever. It's like, it's real. Like, you can really get there. You already got it in you to touch it, like to get up there. You already have it in you to climb it and get to the mountain. I know this for sure. I know this for a fact. And again, the comfort we know, we just get sold on. We sell ourselves on this on this idea that this is, I don't want to dream about that or go for no, we're good. And again, it's not for everybody. I was talking to a friend about this. I need the quote, you can take a horse to water. There's also I added into that. I was like, some horses don't even want to know about the water. Okay. So this is for you. This is, I want to express that right now. And you clicked on this video for a reason. This may not be for you to bring to other people, because not everybody wants to hear about, the potential that they could get to or whatever, and like, so really think about yourself and your life. And the thing is, like, I've seen a lot of people in this space, and the settling and the way that they get calcified into just that train track of self-judgment is so wild. And I want better for everybody. And I know that the only way people can get to that better is through their own action. And hopefully this video can help you navigate getting there and understanding it at least a little bit more. So that's all I got for you. Let's undo the carceral court system we have going on in our minds for our emotions. And I think that the flip to resenting or repressing or imprisoning our big feelings is to celebrate them and put them in a lane where they can flourish. That's it, man. That's it, y'all. That's it, everybody. Okay, we'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for tapping into this series. Who knows what we're going to talk about next, but it's going to be here on this channel daily for the rest of the year. See ya.